Hello everybody, welcome to this episode of Car Wash Magazine Live. I am your host, Matt Wolf, Editor-in-Chief of Car Wash Magazine. Friends, welcome to this show. We are gearing up for the Car Wash Show in May in Nashville. We're going to be doing another 3 days of live streaming all day, every day for you. While we're there, you'll get to hear from some great panelists, some great interviews there. So make sure you stop by and join us. And guess what? We're going to play Plinko. I'm going to talk about that in just 1 second. But today we're going to talk to Ben Nemtin. So Ben Nemtin, he is of the Buried Life fame, which is one of the most famous shows on MTV at one point. And this show is all about how you can live a life that isn't getting buried by the day-to-day tactical stuff. So how can you take time to do the things that are important to you and spend more of your time doing what you love to do? And so by doing that, you end up showing up better for everybody. So I think it's a great conversation. And it's all about bucket lists, but not in the traditional sense. So I just want to say that Plinko, friends, Plinko was on my bucket list. So being able to have a Plinko game during a Car Wash Magazine Live presentation or during one of those shows, I've been talking about it for a long time. And thanks to our partners at the Expo Group who help us kind of put on the Car Wash Show, and special thanks to DRB for sponsoring Plinko, we're going to have it this year. So that item on my list is checked off. So thank you for all of that help to get us to that point. And if you all want to play Plinko, you got to come see us in the studio there in Nashville in May 9 through 11. So one of the things that Ben Nemtin talks a lot about is not being afraid to take the time for yourself and to do the things you like to do. One of those things for me is telling jokes for fun, bad jokes, good jokes, any joke is good. And so we are bringing back in this episode, We Got Jokes.
What is a plumber's favorite kind of dance? Tap dance.
You got to think about that one a little bit. So I hope you got it. If you didn't, I guess we got to work on that joke, and I'll tell Reese we got to go back to the drawing board on that one. So that's it for jokes this week. If you've got a good one, you can send it in to me. That's mdewolf@carwash.org. I can tell it. I can make my kids tell it. Your kids can tell it. You can tell it. Any way you want to do it, we will take your jokes to share a little joy with everybody out there in the car wash community. Now, this week in Car Wash News, we've got a couple of things that I wanted to highlight for you. One is the Mint Eco down in Palm Beach was named Best Car Wash in Palm Beach County by one of the establishments there, one of the publications there. So congratulations to Mint Eco for that honor. That's super cool. And now this one's a little different. We don't often talk too much about news that's kind of outside of our purview. But Genesis EV stations have launched in South Korea. So what does this have to do with anything? I think it's super fascinating because for those of you who may not know, Genesis is this luxury brand of Hyundai. So in that automotive sector, they're what Hyundai is trying to kind of like do as their polished brand there. And so these stations that they've kind of rolled out have that Genesis high-end kind of vibe to them. And so I think it's like the next step in what's happening in terms of integrating kind of EV charging into the experiences that we're doing kind of everywhere else. And so that's super cool. They've got some that are plug-in, and then they've got a couple that are specific wireless pads, which they're going to use, which I think is super awesome, and which I think that if you go out a couple of years, maybe a few years, who knows how fast this can happen, but I could see where you could have varying charging pads on your belt as folks are going through maybe an interior clean, and that vehicle is getting charged as it's going through and doing that process. That could be fascinating. So check it out. Would love to know what you all are doing with your EV strategy, if you have one, what you might be considering in the future. I'd love to talk about this stuff, but that is the news this week in Car Wash. And I've been talking a lot about speakers and people at the Car Wash Show, and that's for good reason because we have a great lineup for you. And we're going to give you just a little taste of one more of those speakers for you right now.
Hey folks, I am Jason Harris, or better known as Lieutenant Colonel Jason O. Harris. I am super excited about being involved with the International Car Wash Association's annual event coming up in Nashville. And the reason I'm so excited is because I'm looking forward to talking to you all about culture. I'm looking forward to talking to you all about building a culture of no-fail trust. That's a culture that's built on commitment, accountability, and trust. You want to talk about how do you build this ownership mentality? How do you help groom and mentor these young folks that you're bringing on board to your organizations to run your car washes? Come hear me speak at the International Car Wash Association, and I look forward to telling you all about cultures of no-fail trust and how do you build that with commitment, accountability, and trust.
That was Lieutenant Colonel Jason O'Harris giving you a little bit of a sneak peek of what he's going to be talking about at the Car Wash Show. Guess what? Spoiler alert, we've got a podcast episode from Lieutenant Colonel Jason O'Harris coming up as well. Great conversation about how you can really empower your team, knowing that a lot of folks in this industry, we're hiring young individuals to work at our locations. And so how do you trust them? How do you empower them? And how do you create that owner mentality in your culture that's going to drive you forward and take you up to the next level? So great conversation with Jason. He's going to go through a lot of that stuff at the Car Wash Show in May. Now, let's get into the meat of this. So we've got Ben Nemtin. We're going to share some of the conversation that I was fortunate enough to have with him. And this is going to make you think a little differently, friends. And hopefully it gives you a little bit of a moment to take a minute and reflect, because for a lot of us, we're pretty hard charging, right? We work a lot. We put a lot of energy and effort into that. And then one day we kind of stop and look and go, man, I missed a lot of things. And so this is a great conversation to help us kind of reset a little bit and think about how we show up every day, and to help us understand that it's okay if we need to take a minute for ourselves, take a little moment to make sure that we can show up better for everybody in our lives. And so here's a little bit of that conversation with Ben Nemtin of The Buried Life.
I think that a lot of times we feel guilty focusing on ourselves, especially if we have a lot of responsibilities, have a lot on our plate. If we're entrepreneurial, we take care of other people, we run our business, we put other people first, and we think that it's a bit selfish to look after ourselves, and it's a bit selfish to pursue our personal ambitions outside of the workplace. But what I've learned is it's actually not selfish, it's actually service. And when you put yourself first, you actually put yourself in a position to serve others better. And you allow yourself to be the best version of yourself. Therefore, you can lead and be the professional or continue to do your job at the highest level. And I think that sometimes that can feel we can feel a little bit guilty for doing that. But what you do is you recharge yourself so that you can be able to pursue, and basically deploy that energy that you get from doing that in any aspect of your life.
I think that's super important, because I know personally, right? When things get really busy, we're on a lot of deadlines, we're trying to crank out content. Sometimes, the stress levels go up and the cortisol rises, and I know that I am not being as graceful as maybe I should be, or I'm not being the right kind of leader that I need to be in that moment. And I find myself often reflecting, maybe don't respond to that email right now, because what you're going to say is not going to be good. So I want to know, and we're going to get into this in this conversation, I want to know how in the heck I can have less of those moments and more of the moments where I feel like we're just crushing it and everybody's happy and our team is great and I'm totally fulfilled in my life. So we're going to start with, I think, a little bit of a definition for folks around bucket lists. So a lot of times people think of a bucket list. It's like, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I'm going to, go to the Galapagos Islands. It's very action oriented. Your take is not quite that. Can you define that for us?
Yeah. So my definition of a bucket list is anything that's going to bring you joy and happiness and fulfillment. And so if you look at what and I encourage people to write their list on a piece of paper, a physical list, because well, there are a few reasons. I'll get into that in a second, but let's just sort of back up and look at what is a bucket list? It's a list of all the things that are going to bring you that sense of fulfillment, that will bring you back to your true self. And if that's what a bucket list is, it's going to reflect all your hopes and dreams, big and small. Then you need to think about your holistic life and all the goals that will reflect that. And so, as you said, usually we think bucket list, we think skydive, we think travel, and that is one of 10 categories of our life. And so I encourage people to look at all the different categories of your life. And so the 10 categories are, you have adventure and travel, and that is one, but you also have, what are your mental health goals? What are your physical health goals? What are your professional goals? What are your relationship goals? You have to invest in relationships that you believe are important to you. That takes energy, that takes time. One of the top 5 regrets of the dying is, I wish I would have stayed in contact with old friends. Well, that doesn't cost any money. What that means is you have to be intentional about the time you spend with people. And so that should be something you should focus on, and make sure that you are investing in the people that you really want to stay in, that you want in your life. There's giving, right? How do you want to make an impact? Material goals. It's okay to have material goals. You want your dream watch. Do you want the house on the beach so you can host your grandkids? Intellectual, what do you want to learn? Creative goals. I think creativity is an often overlooked pillar of wellness, because when you're creative and you're doing things that really are tapping into your true essence, right? Like, that sort of, they talk about flow state. When you're playing sports or doing art or playing music, you sort of get into this state of flow. And really what I think that is that's your true self, right? So I think that's almost therapeutic when you do those things. You're able to express yourself in a very pure way. And I think it's truly important to take time to do those creative expressions, because it allows you to be that version of yourself. So that's another category. So there are all these categories of life that you want to think of. And it's not just big, audacious goals. There's things like spending time alone, spending quality time with your kids. And so really what I like to do is I like to think about my 90-year-old self, right? And I always check in with my 90-year-old self and think and ask that 90-year-old Ben, am I going to be happy with the time I'm spending right now living for me? Because the truth is, and this is what really shocked me, and this is the reason why I speak now, is I read this study by a psychologist named Tom Gilovich, who's a professor at Cornell, who talked with all of these people on their deathbed. And he asked them one question. He said, what is your number one regret in your entire life? And 76% of the people that he asked had the exact same answer. And that was not living true to me. So living my life for other people, or what I thought other people wanted for me. That was the number one regret. That's over 3/4 of the population that will live their entire life and reach their deathbed and think, I blew it. Yeah, I didn't live the life that I wanted. And so using death as a reminder that you're not going to live forever, that your time is limited. Therefore, you have to continually reflect and make sure that you're on your true course and not unconsciously following what you think you should be doing, or not even what other people think or are telling you what you should be doing, but just typically what the general public society thinks you should be doing. And that's why this whole project, the basis of it, the beginning was this question: what do you want to do before you die? Because for us, we thought like, okay, why is it that when you have a near-death experience or someone close to you dies, that you're shaken up so much that you're suddenly, your perspective on life changes? And you hear it all the time, like after this person passed, everything changed. I had this near-death experience, everything changed. And my friend, his friend passed away in high school, and that really shook him. And we thought, we're not going to be here forever. And So what do we want to do with the time we have left? And that was the question we asked ourselves. And the answer to that question, there were a lot of answers. And that's how the bucket list formed. It was our answers to the question, what do you want to do before you die? So this is human nature. We will continually push our personal goals because life gets in the way. And it's funny, this project was actually named after a poem written over 150 years ago. And this poem was written by an old poet named Matthew Arnold. It's called The Buried Life. And this poem talked about this exact same thing, that like we have all these things that we want to do, but we haven't done them because they're buried by the day-to-day. And we have moments when we're inspired, but the day-to-day buries them. And then we get inspired, but then the day-to-day buries them. And we push our personal passions and goals. So this has been happening for hundreds of years. So once we realized that we're not the first people to feel like this, we thought, okay, we're going to call this project, this documentary that we're going to do, we're going to call it The Buried Life. And we set out to tackle our bucket list and help other people, not realizing in that moment in 2006, when we started this project, that it was going to, this 2-week road trip was going to last over 10 years and that it was going to lead us to this pretty important journey of understanding that, geez, why are most people not pursuing these goals? Why do most people have these regrets? And so I grew this passion for trying to figure out, why don't people do these things? And really it just boils down to 3 things that are come out of the research that the psychologist did that we can talk about. But basically that's my definition of a bucket list, is anything that's going to bring you joy and happiness.
So, one of the things that was interesting as you were telling that story about the study and sitting on the deathbed and using death as a reminder, something that always comes up for me is, somebody passes away and everybody has all these great things to say about that person. Their life was well lived. They did all these great things. They were such a great XYZ. But I always go back to thinking, well, why didn't we say that when they were alive? Right. And we're really bad at that. And it's one of those things that, like, if I'm putting this down on my list of things that I need to be better at, it's like appreciating people and telling them what I think about them on the positive side, because I think that they never got to hear it. And that's unfortunate. And that's kind of depressing. I was getting goosebumps as you were talking about it, because I was thinking about that. And it was making me think, oh, well, there's one of the things I need to write down on my list.
So that's one of the top 5 regrets of the dying. So I have this. So my new book is called The Bucket List Journal, and it's basically a tool to help you not have those regrets. Right? Like we need to, from a high level, we have 3 problems with our personal goals. There's no deadlines, but we have deadlines for everything else in our life, which means we need to create accountability around our personal goals. The second is, usually with these personal goals, we're waiting to feel inspired to go after them, or we're waiting for the right time. And that inspiration never comes, and the right time never comes. So we need to create our own inspiration by taking action, because you create your own momentum. You create your own inspiration through action. And the third is, we need to move through fear, right? The fear of what other people think, or the fear of failure. And that's the biggest barrier. But and we can talk about those, but just to your point of like telling people how you really feel. So this is the bucket list journal. This is the top 5 regrets of the dying. And one of the regrets is, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Right. And so what that comes down to is telling people how you really feel. And I feel the same way. I think it's tragic that we have this beautiful expression and celebration of this person, and they're not there, and I think that's why I love, toasts at weddings. I love speeches at birthdays, because it's an opportunity to express how you feel about someone and to tell them how much they mean to you. And by the way, all these regrets don't have anything to do with money. And you notice that when there's a eulogy, people don't say, Oh, John Smith, he had a lot of money. Man, did he ever make a ton of money? What a guy. He was a millionaire. Great work, John. You know, like it's the first, and this is what I talked about. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Yeah. That's the biggest regret. And so that happens, you know, unconsciously, because we sometimes don't even realize that we're living for other people, which is why it's so important to stop and reflect and write your list, because it forces you to slow down and think about what's important to you. The second, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Yeah. So it's the opposite of making money. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And the 5th is I wish I had let myself be happier, which is a more of a complex solution. But I think what that comes back to is following your list, doing those things that you know you love, that you know are going to be bringing you that sense of fulfillment, and prioritizing those and not letting those things get pushed by the day-to-day. And so that means creating accountability, which means you write your list, because then all of a sudden your dreams, your goals aren't thoughts, they're real. You have a reminder. That's why you talk about your list and you share them, because then you feel accountable to the people you share them with. If I tell you, yeah, I'm writing my next book, it's going to be out in 2023. And then we set a podcast in 6 months and you say, how's the book coming? And I think, damn, I better start writing that book. Right? So when you share your goals, that builds accountability. If you want to increase your chances by 77%, you have someone checking in with you down the line. You have an accountability buddy, right? And you think about it, accountability really works. Think about all the accountability structures we have in our professional lives. That's why we have leaders. They keep us accountable, right? They meet with us once a month, once a week, check in. That's why we have a salary that keeps us accountable. That's why we don't want to look bad. That keeps us accountable. So you can take this thing that can actually be almost a weakness. We care so much about what other people think. This is the fear of what other people think. That's what stops us, and that's not going to go away. But you can use that to your favor when you share your goals with someone. Then that actually works on your side, because then you're like, oh, this person knows that I want to do this. I better do it because I don't want to look bad, right? And that's sort of what pushes us in the professional setting, is sometimes that fear of, oh, I don't want to let people down. I don't want to look bad. I said I was going to do this. I have to do it. And so we need to set up those same structures of accountability around these personal goals.
All right, friends. So that is just a taste of that conversation, and it is so rich and so powerful. We're dropping the rest of the conversation here in just a couple of minutes at Car Wash the Podcast. So you can pick that up anywhere you're getting your podcast content. But man, like if you don't listen to this conversation with Ben Nemtin and go back and start making some real powerful changes for yourself, I think that you're missing a great opportunity, because after a couple of years of going through everything that folks have been going through, I think that this is a fantastic conversation. I think we all need to hear some of this stuff, and to just know that it's okay. Everything's okay. So, friends, we've got more great episodes coming up for you in the coming weeks. We're going to see you live in Nashville, May 9 through 11. So come stop by the studio, say hello. And friends, when you're out there and you're just killing it, washing cars or doing things that make you a better version of yourself, there's just one thing you've got to do, and that is keep it clean.